Hello guys, and welcome back to Reading Club. So today, I'm going to read you Daisy and the Trouble with Vampires, Chapter 15 and Chapter 16. Chapter 15. The trouble with trick-or-treating time is I had never gone trick-or-treating before, so I didn't really know what kind of time I was going to have. I'd always kind of secretly wanted to try trick-or-treating, but only in the road I live in, because then I'd be close to my mom if I had to run home. Trouble is, Mrs. Pike wanted to go trick-or-treating somewhere else. If I tell you the road we were going to, Daisy, it will spoil the surprise, she said, blowing out the candle in my pumpkin and then getting ready to leave the house. Make sure you wrap up warm, she said, before blowing out all the candles in the pumpkin on the stairs. I will, I said, following her to the door and getting my coat from the coat hook. Make sure you do up all the buttons, she said, before picking up a black bin bag. I will, I said, tucking my jumper into my trousers first to make me extra safe. Okay then, said Mrs. Pike, opening the front door. Let's do this. The trouble with opening a front door and doing this is when I looked outside, I didn't feel like doing this at all because it wasn't Halloween night afternoon anymore. It was actual Halloween night. Plus, it was really foggy too. Isn't it exciting, Daisy? Said Mrs. Pike, jingling her car keys above her head. Isn't it atmospheric? I'm going to have to turn on my fog lights. The trouble with fog lights is I wasn't sure what fog lights were. But as soon as Mrs. Pike switched them on, I found out. They made Halloween night fog look even ghostlier. And they showed you how hard fog is to see through. The trouble with not being able to see through fog is when I looked up at the sky, there was absolutely no way I could see if there was a full moon or not. When we drove past my front gate, I could barely see my house. Look, Daisy, trick-or-treaters, said Mrs. Pike when we got to the top of my road. It was Rocco and Trixie, the children who live at number 7. They were trick-or-treating with their mom. Look, Daisy, more trick-or-treaters, she said as we turned slowly into the next road and drove all the way to the end. The more roads we drove along, the more trick-or-treaters we saw. Some of them I even recognized from school. We didn't just see trick-or-treaters either. We saw some really weird things, too. Look, there's Christopher Leek, said Mrs. Pike. Who's Christopher Leek? I asked. Oh, he's a vampire vegetable, she said. His brother is Count Dracula. Are you really a real actual vampire? I asked Mrs. Pike when we stopped at the first set of traffic lights. Goodness, no, Daisy, she laughed. There's no such things as real vampires. Didn't your mom tell you? I'm just pretending to be a vampire for Halloween. I'm just pretending to be Fernando, the boy who played hide and seek with ghosts and ended up as a skeleton covered in cobwebs, I told her. Ah, of course, said Mrs. Pike. I thought that was you who I'd come as. I made my costume myself, I told her. Apart from Mom helping me pull the cracker, I did absolutely everything by myself. You look fabulous, said Mrs. Pike. Absolutely fabulous. It was so foggy when Mrs. Pike finally parked the car. I had no idea where we were at all. Even if the streetlights had been fog lights, I wouldn't have been able to see where we were. Welcome, Daisy, Mrs. Pike said, undoing her seatbelt and then grabbing the black bin bag from the back seat. Welcome, my dear, to Church Road. Chapter 16. The trouble with Church Road is I'd never been to Church Road before. not even in the day, so I had no idea what it was like. All I could see was fog. Church Road is a wonderful road for trick-or-treating, Daisy, said Mrs. Pike. I used to come trick-or-treating here when I was a girl. Now here's a torch for you to shine, and here's a can of silly string for you to squirt. Are you ready to get started, Daisy? I guess so, I said. Then let's start at number 1, she said. It was a good job Mrs. Pike had given me a torch, because it helped us find the gate to the first house. Now then, Daisy, said Mrs. Pike, this is what we'll do. We'll knock on the front door of every house in the road, and if they open it, we'll shout, trick or treat. If the person who opened the door says treat, they'll give you a treat, like a sweet or some fruit. If the person who opens the door says trick, then you must squirt them with your silly string and then run. When I found out that trick-or-treating meant I got to squirt people with silly string and then run, I started to feel much less nervous straight away. I love squirting people with silly string, even people I don't know. What if no one comes to the door? I asked. We go to the next house, said Mrs. Pike. What do I do if people gave me treats? I asked. You put them in this black bin bag, she said. Good, because there is no way I'm going to eat them, I told her. Walking through the fog to my first ever trick-or-treating door felt really weird, especially with a grown-up dressed as a vampire behind me. I'll ring the doorbell, said Mrs. Pike, leaning over me and pressing it with one of her long purple fingernails. You get ready to say trick-or-treat. As soon as the doorbell rang, I put my hand inside my coat pocket. As soon as the door opened, I got ready to squirt my silly string. Trick or treat, shouted Mrs. Pike before I'd even had a chance to say or do anything. Treat, said the lady, holding out a big box of sweets. The trouble with ladies saying treat is it means you're not allowed to squirt them with silly string. You have to take a sweet out of the box instead. Take 2, take 3, said the lady. Did she think I was mad? Thank you so much, said Mrs. Pike, holding the bag out for me to drop my poisoned sweet into, and then waving goodbye to the lady. Happy Halloween! What a good start, she said as we headed back down the path in the direction of house number 2. Good start? It was a rubbish start, if you ask me. All I wanted to do was squirt someone with the silly string. The trouble with wanting to squirt someone with silly string is if everyone who opens their door says treat, then there is no way you can do it. And guess what? The lady at number 2 Church Road said treat. The man at number 3 Church Road said treat. The children at number 4 said treat. And the lady at number 5 said treat. The people at number 6 and 9 didn't say treat, but that was only because they didn't answer the door. Everyone else, all the way up to house number 12, kept on saying treat. It was so unfair. If someone doesn't answer, can I squirt their door instead? I asked Mrs. Pike. Ooh, no, Daisy, she said. You don't want to waste your silly string on a silly old front door. You want to squirt it all over someone. Let's keep going. Our bag is really filling up. Perhaps the people at number 13 will say trick. Let's go and see. So we went and saw, and just my luck, it was just treat, treat, treat all the way. By the time we got to the middle of Church Road, I'd been given a poisoned toffee, a poisoned packet of refreshers, 3 poisoned lollipops, 2 poisoned apples, a poisoned strawberry chew, a poisoned banana flump, a packet of poisoned crisps, 4 poisoned mints, a packet of poisoned chewing gum, and a poisoned sugar rat. That wasn't a sugar rat at all. It was a sugar mouse. Because I've seen a sugar mice before. And anyway, sugar rats would be far too scary to eat. By the time we got to the end of the road, I had lost count of how many poisonous things we had in the bag. All I knew was I hadn't got to squirt anyone with my silly string, not even a teensy squirt, or even a weensy squirt, because everyone in Church Road only knows how to say treat and not trick. It was so annoying. Wasn't that wonderful, said Mrs. Pike, shining her torch back down the path of number 32. Wasn't that fun? I told you it would be fun, didn't I, Daisy? But I'm afraid this is the end of Church Road. The trouble with the end of Church Road is it meant there would be no more chances to squirt my silly string. Can we go back the other way and do the houses on the other side of the road too? I asked. There are no houses on the other side of Church Road, Daisy, said Mrs. Pike, flashing her torch through the fog. All you'll see is fields. When Mrs. Pike said there were fields on the other side of Church Road, I didn't believe her at first. I'd never heard of roads that didn't have houses on both sides, but when I pointed my torch in the same direction as hers, I saw that it was true. There were no gates, no walls, no houses, no front doors. There weren't even any street lamps on the other side of Church Road. All there was fog. Number 32 is the very last building in the road, Daisy, said Mrs. Pike, flashing her torch through the fog, unless you include the church. The trouble with including churches is trick-or-treaters should never include churches, especially churches in the dark in the fog in the countryside on Halloween night. Anyone knows that, except Mrs. Pike. Wait a moment, you've given me an idea, Daisy, she suddenly said, pinning her arm around me and leading me towards a creepy, cobwebby wooden gate. Let's include the church. You'll love the church at the end of Church Road. Daisy, especially the church at the end of Church Road on Halloween. Will I be able to square the vicar with silly string? I asked, squeezing through the gate. I'm not sure the vicar will be in the church at this time of night, Mrs. Pike whispered. But I'll tell you what you can do, she said, shining her torch under her chin and making her face look super creepy. Are you feeling brave, Daisy? Not really, I said. Are you feeling really, really brave, Daisy? She whispered. I don't think so, I said, but she still wasn't listening. You can play murder in the graveyard with me, she cackled. So that's the end of this channel. I hope you enjoyed my readings of it, and if you did, please click many likes and subscribe Reading Club. So I'll come back later with a new and improved channel. Bye everybody!